Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Dave Madden. I'm the Academic Director of the MFA program here at the University of San Francisco. Welcome to the second event in our MFA reading series. Tonight, as you know, we're here to listen to the work and ideas of poet Jan Beatty. But before we do that, I need to do some thanking of people, some reminders. The reminder is to stay muted throughout the reading, please, which I get like, this is like the new Zoom equivalent of like, please silence your cell phones. Please mute your Zoom, please. The chat is open, as you see, and it's there chiefly for Doug, who will be, Doug Powell, who will be gathering questions for the Q&A portion of the event. But please feel free to use the chat respectfully and with love, show your enthusiasms, etc. Also, there's some things. Tonight's event wouldn't be possible without the ongoing support we had from the Dean's Office of the College of Arts and Sciences. And I also want to take time to thank Kimberly Garrett, who's our amazing program assistant here in the MFA program, for help in setting up the event. And as always, many thanks to Micah Ballard, who's our administrative director, for all he does to keep things running in the program. So next, I'm going to introduce Jess Peiser, who's a third-year student in poetry, and she's zooming into us from Iowa, of all places, and she's going to be introducing tonight's reader. Jess, please unmute, and you have the floor.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dave. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to see all your faces. Thank you so much for joining us all here tonight to welcome Jan Beatty. Jan is an American poet. She has several amazing books, including from most recent, The Body Wars, Jackknife, New and Selected Poems, The Switching Yard, Ravage, Red Sugar, Boneshaker, Mad River, and Ravenous. And that's including a couple of chapbooks that are also awesome, but on her website, you can order those and still access and share those as well. So I challenge you to check out any of those selections if you haven't. Jan was the recipient of the 2019 Red Hen Nonfiction Award for her memoir, American Bastard, the 2018 Paterson Poetry Prize, and the Agnes Lynch Starrett Poetry Prize, the Pablo Neruda Prize for Poetry, and the Creative Achievement Award in Literature. In 2018, Jan was named Distinguished Writer in Residence of the MFA program at Carlow University. Beatty's first collection, Mad River, established her clear, confident voice, which journeys the reader in gritty and risky spaces while still laying a foundation for hope. Themes were introduced here that would continue showing up in her work: longing, desire, sexiness, rawness, energy, and the real. It is her willingness to engage with the vulnerable and unexpected that invites her readers not only to engage with the uncomfortable more openly, but to step into our passions and our everyday lives with an introspective lens. The book was the winner of the 1994 Agnes Lynch Starrett Prize. When reading selections from The Switching Yard, I found myself reevaluating my own body in relation to the American landscape of farm workers, which I come from. Beatty's significance as a writer extends beyond my own life into the larger collective of the literary world we all know and love. Her voice and content are not only presently significant, but I believe will continue to be relevant far into the future. Wherever a person desires the refusal of conformity, the complexity of the forbidden, or a meaningful approach to the difficult in life. Jan, thank you so much for coming to USF and sharing your journey with us. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. That was such a nice introduction. Thank you, Jess. I hope I can meet you in person one day when I come out there. I love San Francisco, so I'll be out there, and hope we can find each other. If you're in Iowa, I don't think I'll make it to Iowa. But and thank you to Dave Madden and everybody who you thanked, who I can't remember, but I want to thank Kimberly Garrett and the amazing Doug Powell, who will be here, and for inviting me, and also to continue to invite me after this became a virtual event, because I thought it would be canceled. So it's really nice to have all of you here. Thank you for coming. And I know it's not ideal, but I think we can still have a good time. And please ask me any questions that you want to ask me. So if anything comes up while I'm reading. So I'm going to start with two poems from The Switching Yard, because I know that that Doug was teaching that book. And so I'm going to start with Ghost Daddies. I was born in a place called Rosalia Asylum and Maternity Hospital in the Hill District of Pittsburgh. And it was what used to be called a home for unwed mothers, which is a terrible name. So the women would go there to have their babies, leave the babies there. And then people would come and pick out a baby, like you'd pick out a used car, Obviously, I have some issues with that that come out in my book, American Bastard, but which deals with the darker side of adoption. But I didn't know my name until I was in my late 30s, and that's what this poem sort of deals with. Ghost Daddies. When I was a girl, I was a boy with black boots and holster and a basketball hoop in the backyard. My reach was endless. I was birthed in a meteor shower, and all the stars knew my name. Ever since I've been on street corners with gym crack men you wouldn't want to know, making myself a luminary. I had this piece of paper, took years to get it, the story before the story changed, before the government got their hands on it. I've been told. My first father was a millionaire. His name on my birth certificate, voice on the phone, his lame ass answer. I didn't come inside her. I was the small voice asking. He was the hammer coming down, shattering me into shooting stars. I covered my bedroom ceiling with planets, prayed for a meteor hit to bury the house. My second father was a hockey player who fucked my mother when she was 20. I drove to Boston to meet him, armed with her picture. He didn't remember her. I was a professional athlete, he said. There were a lot of women. His green eyes burned familiar, and I thought he was a good man. Then 2 weeks later, he said no. He didn't think he could be my father. I decided I've come from a long line of cowards, men who can only stand up if they're flaccid after that. Sometimes the earth moves in my dreams with lies about my past. I was bent on ruination, drugs for lunch and dinner with some dope in between. My face, the face of no father, unrecognizable, so why not? I was the immaculate cum shot. I was the wildly surviving thing, racing after ghost daddies in dreams. Dear father, whoever you are, I hope the sex was ravenous, with cross-checking, slashing. I hope there were slats of light everywhere to see my star on the other side. So I want to say that one of these lines, I was the wildly surviving thing, I stole from D.A. Powell. And I gave him credit. Of course I did. And he knows that. But yeah. So another poem from The Switching Yard. So I met my birth mother a couple times. First time was at Catholic Social Services, and it was a while ago. I know this because I was wearing dresses back then. So that was a really long time ago. So I had two dresses, one blue one and a red one. I wore the red one to go meet her, and she was wearing the blue one when I got there, which was really kind of terrifying. This is called My Mother Was a Dress. For years, I was wearing her. She was cotton, her neck a blue V for her blue vagina that birthed 6 babies. She had a vanilla string around her waist, even though she was hooker red at heart like me. I wore her for 2 years, along with a sister dress of deep cherry. When I went to meet her the first time at Catholic Social Services, I wore the cherry and she wore the blue vagina. We thought that genetics had made us go to Joseph P. Horne's to buy the V, but decided we both lived near the bloodless department store. After that, I took her off, stopped wearing her, didn't want her touching my body anymore. I prefer to think it's all animal, the way the V opens my neck to predators, the way she scissored her legs open to my father's cock, the way the dress hugs my hips, then falls, just like she said she hugged me once before falling away, switching me out for sale. So I'm going to read some poems from my new book, The Body Wars, and this is it. And you can see the painting is behind me on my wall, and it's by this great artist Michael Latenero. You might want to check him out. You can see it on my website, but he's so great, and he's a great person too. So we're hoping next year maybe to have another book party at his studio with some music, and that would be cool. So this is the title poem, The Body Wars. I walked into the woods bleeding. I left the town and mourned. Midnight in Alaska, still light, and I was alone, walking into the Sitka woods. It had been 1 year since I'd bled, and longer since I fucked anybody. I was propelled forward into the thickness, into the needles and dirt of Sitka spruce, and stupidly, not even afraid of bear. My father, the person I clung to, needed to stay alive, had died 6 months before, and his leaving was the impossible thing. I didn't yet know my own wars and how to name them. So during my father's sickness, when I stopped bleeding, the gynecologist said, well, it's stress. And did I know that in World War II, the women paratroopers stopped having periods? I was stunned by his directness, intensity, earnestness. You are in a war, he said. I didn't know what to do with that. And so I got on a boat to Alaska, the Alaska Marine Highway, slept on the deck until I froze. Then the shipman gave me a hanging bunk and slipped me food from the cafeteria. They said, you can sleep here, but watch out for the bow thrusters. I had no idea what they meant until the sound burst open and my berth swayed, and it was time to get off. It was a time of great changes. And days later, I'm wandering the woods at midnight, feeling lost and found in this northern place. And it was there I felt the blood start to move, felt a rising and falling in the stream down my leg. And I cried in the forest alone for my beautiful father, gone too soon, for myself and all my ignorance, not even knowing my own wars, the ones already fought or the many to still come. So I'm often mistaken for a man, and that's okay. But it's also kind of strange. It's like I think people don't look, or they don't care to look, or else they have some idea in their head that, like, I don't know what it is, but something like, if you have short hair, you must be a man or something like that. I don't even know what they're thinking. But so this is kind of about that, and starts at a Halloween party at the university where I teach. It's called Crushing It. Halloween, the pizza delivery girl said, "Are you dressed like a trucker?" "No," I said. "I'm supposed to be a Western woman writer." "Oh," she said, "I like it." Someone else thought I was Eddie Vedder, someone else, Tommy Morello from Rage Against the Machine. Maybe it was the ball cap flannel vibe, but I was shooting for Pam Houston, dreaming of Wyoming and the bighorns. Like when the cab driver in Dublin said, You look exactly like Anastasia. She's a singer, she's beautiful, except she has long blonde hair. Then I crossed the road, and the guy at airport security said, "This way, sir." Once at the makeup counter in Macy's, I asked for some skin cream. The skin specialist stood a foot from my face and said, "I'm sorry, sir, we don't carry that line." Pam Houston, where are you now? I know you like cowboys, but the bighorns call me daily. It's wide open that I need, where the big road snakes and cattle move so slowly, they won't even call me ma'am, sir, or Neil Young. I'm here in Pittsburgh, crushing on you. So, yeah, I have a couple train poems. I've written a lot of trains. I've ridden across Canada maybe 4 times. Like I would go from Toronto to Jasper or Toronto to Vancouver on Via Rail. I would recommend it, but I was doing that before I knew I was half Canadian, before I knew my birth father was. I eventually found out he was a Canadian hockey player who won 3 Stanley Cups, and I got to meet him once, but. So it was kind of bizarre that I was like compelled to go to Canada. I was like running around Canada for years and years, who knows why, but I was, that's what I was doing. So this goes way back before I knew any of this. For the man who died on the tracks, Edmonton, British Columbia, June 30th, 1987. For the man who died at 10 p.m., walking the train tracks in the late June dark, to you, can I tell you that we mourned? The stewards cried, the conductors joked to hide their fright. The children in coach saw your body fly by at dusk in the Canadian night. We stared, I prayed. I read a poem by Gary Snyder to Alan Watts in memory of his death, for I didn't know your name, though someone said you were a man of 45. And I don't know if you walked along the tracks to die and why you didn't jump at the whistle. But I want to tell you that a baby cries right now, 45 minutes later, and the whistle is blowing longer now and more often. It sounds like a cry, a wall of death, and people sit in their rooms, doors open, and stare and say how sad it is. I think of my dead father and ask him to help you. I want you to know that you are mourned. I sit in a cabin and talk of my dad and listen to the steward speak of the death of his grandparents and his love for them. I want you to know that we stopped and prayed and we cried for you, the 45-year-old man on the tracks on June 30th, 1987 in the Canadian night. Jerry, the train steward, said, I don't know how to feel. We looked for your body. The sirens came. We stood on the back of the train with the steam rising and hoped for your life. We looked through binoculars. We looked at each other. We stopped and mourned. So I used to be a social worker years ago. I worked in maximum security prisons and abortion clinics and at the welfare office. And I was not a very good social worker. I couldn't handle it, honestly. I would just cry all the time. I cry a lot now, but I cried then when I was with my clients. And so teaching is better for me. I don't usually cry with my students, although that has happened. So, but I just couldn't do it. I was also in my early 20s. So this is when I worked in Moundsville Penitentiary. It's called Train Jumper. This is one of my clients. Train Jumper, interview, Moundsville Penitentiary, 1975. I used to love jumping trains, he said. That's how I got this. He knocked on his wooden stick leg, old school, like Captain Ahab, he said, with a broom handle-like extension that rose from knee to waist, the stilt sticking out of his pant leg below the knee and gathered up and above it like it was stuffed with sheets or cotton or something soft. And when he walked, his whole body shook as he swung his right peg leg around in a half circle, enough to power a generator. About 5'6" and skinny, with years on his face in deep cuts of wrinkles and dark circles of eyes. Sitting in the visitor room of Moundsville Penitentiary, he said, I threw a rock through the window of the pawn shop to get a gun, robbed the 7-Eleven next door. All I took was an orange crush and a beef jerky. Didn't take long. I sat on the curb until the cops came. Was the best beef jerky, because I knew I was coming back. This is home now. I'm too old for the trains. Here's good. So I just want to say for this next one that I'm okay, because people have come up to me and worried about me. I'm okay. This is about doing drugs, and I've done a lot of drugs and alcohol, and I'm not recommending it. But you know, I've been in recovery for a while. So this is about a stupid question that I answered. No, the question was not stupid. My answer was stupid. Okay, so somebody asked me if I ever did heroin. And I said, no, I never did heroin. I only snorted it. And that's like a classic addict answer. And I thought, oh my God, you know, after all these years, that's the best I have. And so it's like, no, I never did heroin. I only did heroin, you know, so, okay. So then I wrote this. It's called Speedballing. I woke bloody from snorting heroin, rocking myself skinless, the veins in my neck and my pink eyes speedballing blood, shooting up words like all addicts do. I never did heroin. I only snorted it. I never did crack. I just freebased the coke I had. Getting clean, a bigger mind fuck. Pray, they said. Good, they said. Let go. They wanted blood for their spiritual path, and I wanted to please, but inside I was granular, weepy. I woke wanting frenzy, having never been trained in the sweet good night. When you ask yourself, who's the animal? Who's the killer? Just know they taught us to drink the blood of a man nailed to a cross when we were children. And so fuck it. Fuck sweetness, just fuck it. And every other misguided bedtime story. I skinned myself down to my own idea of bone until the song and the gear shift became my only true loves. Shooting up words to stay alive because everybody wants blood. It's just where and how you want to give it. So I have a few more. This one is from, again, is back in the orphanage where I think I was there for the first year of my life, as far as I know. And if you get online, you'll see these 1950s photos of the place, of Rosalia Asylum. And they have this photo called the Playroom, which is really, really the wrong name for this place. And because there's this metal carousel, there's these drugged out infants on this carousel, and there's this hanging bulb, you know, from the ceiling. So it's pretty bleak. This is called Double Cut. I was double cut, once in the womb with a hanger, once when I came out. In the asylum, the hanging bulb of the playground kingdom birthed the hunger in me. Children staring in cast-off tees, the paint-chipped metal carousel was struck stupid infants strapped in. The golden girl sits in her dirty diaper, She'll grow up a poet, loving suspension. You be the fat black crow, you be the driftwood. You be the poorest kid, dirty face. You be the crying one. You be the no name, strapped in and spinning. Okay, so here's, I think I need some humor or something. It's comic relief or something. So when I was putting the reading together, I'm like, oh my God, these are really all kind of depressing. So, so this one is from, which is okay, but this is from Switching Yard, and I'll tell you a story about this after. But I got angry at poetry, which happens a lot. I got angry at poetry, and specifically, I got angry at straight white men in the poetry mafia, you know, publishing everything and running the poetry magazines. So I wrote this poem. Poetry. I see you're publishing straight man, white, white, white. How nice. Are you kidding me? Best American poetry, I'm bored to death. Is anyone alive out there? Your sonnet is impotent and I have a hard on. Here's your bloody sonnet. Cunt, 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 cunt. The needle dick, the needle dick, the knee. American poetry. Tell your mother you'll be home late. If anyone's out there waiting for you to lick them good, it'll be a long night. I was once fucked by an intellectual in iambic pentameter. My hand was better and more responsive. Your friend, Jan Beatty. So, okay, so I wrote this poem and the book comes out. I get this email from David Lehman, and who runs Best American Poetry. And trust me, I don't get emails from David Lehman. So I'm like, oh no, maybe he didn't like my poem. And so, so he said, he told me that I got into Best American Poetry and that he saw my poem and he laughed out loud. And so I thought that was kind of cool that he had a sense of humor. So, and I was happy to get in Best American Poetry. You know, let's be honest here. Okay. But I'm still pissed off about all the rest. I have two more poems. This is about two women driving to DC for an abortion, and just want to say, everybody vote like your life depends on it, because you know it does. Okay. Hot in the striped boy's heart. It's hot in the loading bridge, hot in the birth canal. It's hot in the striped boy's heart. We're two women driving to DC for an abortion in my beater sea green Le Mans with the sex, drugs, and rock and roll sticker on the bumper. It's hot living in my car with the mattress in the back, the windshield wipers disintegrating. And so it's raining all the way to DC, and my friend is terrified. Let it go too long with a guy she loves, but he could care, and she can't face her parents. Borrowed money from the waitresses we worked with, saline solution for a second trimester abortion. It's hot in the Silverman's t-shirt I'm still wearing from 6th grade with gold and blue stripes, hot in the men's store buying my first real shirt with my girlfriend Patty. I was a boy then, not yet a woman, following the sight lines from the silver hood ornament to the double yellow. Hot in the Pontiac trunk of clothes and boxes and the cheap hotel in Silver Springs for the early morning procedure. Two women in their 20s out of state for treatment, hot in this traveling altar. These bodies run amok. Body of light, body of doubles, body of never telling anyone, never seeing her again. Hot in my striped boy's heart in this car, dragging home with no talk, still bleeding. This is my last poem. I want to thank everybody for listening. And this poem features Doug Powell is actually in this poem. So, and he's talking in the poem. So I also want to say that this is inspired by my friend Judith Vollmer, who is an amazing poet. If you don't know her, please check her out. Her latest book is called The Apollonia Poems. She was reading my manuscript and for the Body Wars, and she told me that I had used the word beautiful 16 times in the manuscript. And I said, that doesn't seem possible, because I think I'm writing these tough poems. How could I use the word beautiful 16 times? She said, you can't do that. You can't do it. I said, okay. And so I was cutting beautifuls from my manuscript, and except with this poem, I couldn't do it. And so that's why it's called, dedicated to Judith Vollmer. It's called Beautiful Overused in Muir Woods. And it's a love poem to trees. Sitting in the cathedral trees, the air full of water and more air, almost liquid air, sweet against the skin, the wide planks of the great American platforms for the people to walk, and many benches, green, green, water running west with the massive fallen tree parts crossing, families of all languages, Japanese, German, women in hijabs, picture taking, the canopy of the tallest above us, no better covering. I want to weep for the comfort, the peace of it, tree love everywhere, moss, lichen, hanging, decomposing branches that have become their new beauty, thick spindles next to the giant, thick redwoods. Cut the tree down, see the years. Don't cut the tree, feel the years. We are small, small, thank God for the smallness, and love is big. And I'm meeting Pierre, the taxi driver, at 2. Be there by the blocked entrance where those guys are standing. Be on time, he says. Give me some money, he says. He's listening to a broadcast on his phone from Haiti, his home. Go there, he says. You will have something to write. The water, the land is beautiful. All we hear is trouble, I say. Trouble, no trouble, Pierre says. Turns his thin face towards me, missing most of his front teeth. The love pouring off of him like tree air, like seedlings, running streams. You give me tip, he says. Oh yeah, I say, okay. The tree hut holds millions of years demarcated. Read the tree, read about the tree. Go up close, feel the fucking tree. My God, I am lucky. We are this beautiful strangled world. The Germans are laughing in their gray sweaters. The Japanese argue about the age of the tree. Now the German men pose in gray sweater vests, just the men against the tree. Hurry, get the picture. Pierre in leather jacket and jeans, black hat that says Brixton Supply, and dramatic green hills, all trees. We're listening to 90s pop, ABBA. He says, look, eucalyptus. I can't tell you how thrilling. We are in this together, this watching inside of, and a few modern houses perched on these hillsides. Who lives there, I say. Pierre says, you could buy one, a bit of money. And I see his white goatee for the first time as we pass Muir Meadows, and Christina Aguilera's singing, I am beautiful, no matter what they say. Words can't bring me down. And she's from Pittsburgh, and everybody nailed her for being trashy and dirty. And I say she's doing it her way, onto the S-curves, the winding. Pierre needs some oil. We stop at a Mill Valley station, and he says, I have to make the money to pay for the car. I need to make $100 a day for the car, and then some for me. When Obama was in, it was better. Sometimes I make it, sometimes I don't. And I think of the beautiful Doug Powell, and how the next day I tell him about Pierre and the trees, and Doug says, the blue gum eucalyptus have these beautiful oval shapes, and then they become falciform. And if you know Doug, you know his brilliant esoteric love of everything. and he tells me the leaves become hard and sickle-shaped. And I think of Pierre and Doug and me, of us all meeting over trees, our spirits spinning around the magic west. Thank you. That's it. Thanks to everybody.
Jan,
Yeah.
if everyone wants to unmute for a second and just scream your name. Can we do that?
Jan
Yay.
Beatty.
Like the poems.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
That was incredible. That was so incredible.
Thanks.
I'm so glad that this worked out. I mean, you know, originally Jan was coming in person, as we all were. And here you are. We're gonna, you know, the beauty of a reading series like this is we get the poet, we get the poems, and then since we are a learning environment, we like to let students ask questions. The first question is going to come to you from Jess, who gave your intro, that beautiful, amazing introduction.
Yeah, that was great.
Thank you, Doug. After hearing you share about leaving and coming back to poetry, it made me wonder how or why you came to it in the first place and why you continue coming back to it when feeling pushed away from it.
When did I say I was pushed away from it? What did I say?
Said that it's a love-hate sometimes, and you mentioned getting pissed off at the structures of poetry.
Oh yeah, that. Oh,
and
yeah.
then having to like reinvite yourself, and I'm curious about what that is like.
Well, I mean, I think that's just the nature of being an artist. I mean, it's never going to be smooth sailing. I mean, you know, what is, but I mean, digging into something, getting frustrated, throwing it across the room, finding something new to read, falling in love with it, getting stuck, all that stuff. I mean, to me, that's just kind of the normal of it. The Dear American Poetry stuff was, I was just really angry at the lack of diversity in poetry, and which still is a huge problem. I mean, it's getting a little better, but long way to go. I mean, I started out, you know, I won the poetry contest in first grade, and so I was writing when I was little, but when and I, you know, wrote all during my teenage years, but you know, that terrible poems, diary poems, breakup poems, under the bed, locked diary poems, and but I was the first one in my family to go to college, and I never once imagined that I could be a writer. So that was never. I just didn't think that was possible, and so that was really, I guess, I just never thought that I could do that. So so I just wanted to go to college, and I felt like, you know, my adopted family, my dad was a steel worker, and, you know, I felt like I was really lucky to go to college, which I was, and that my job was just don't screw it up and get a job. That's where I was thinking. I had a serious working class mentality, and which I still have. And so it took me a long time to allow and believe that I could be a poet. Yeah, but once I made it to grad school, I was in, you know, I've been in, you know, I'm not leaving, you know. So does that answer your question?
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Jan, I wonder if you could tell us just a little bit about the program that you teach in, because I think it's such an amazing gift that you're giving?
You're talking about the Mad Women?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the Mad Women. We have a couple Mad Women who are signed on tonight. I know Ava's here, and who else is here? Lauren was here. Yeah, the Mad Women in the Attic is a great organization. It's women ages 18 to 95, primarily a community group, and we also have undergrads. And we have 13 sections of classes each semester. We started with 3 when I got there, and we've been just growing and growing. This past semester, we've gone national. So if any of you are interested, you can join the Mad Women. We had a poetry section last semester. Now we're gonna have poetry and fiction this semester, national, online. It's just, it's a beautiful thing. It's primarily workshop. There's some books involved. There's some visiting writers involved. And when Doug was there, the Mad Women brought Doug and loved Doug. It's a place where women can write, be heard, talk about anything, and not be afraid. I've had some women in class who waited until their husbands died to come to class because they were afraid, where you can talk about sexual assault and not, and feel safe. And it's not that that's everything that we do, but that's really important to have that place. And, we're serious. A lot of the Mad Women are having books now. And it's really the best part of what I do. It's really inspiring to me. I had a Mad Women class this morning, and we had an argument. We have arguments all the time. People cry. It's emotional, and it's serious, and it's craft based. It's like everything. So I would encourage you all to join. Yeah. I don't know, Doug. You met the Mad Women. What would you say about us?
Well, the program reminds me very much of a place up in well, it's in Pingrove now. It used to be in Katati, a place called the Sitting Room, which was started by one of my professors at Sonoma State. And it was designed based on Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, a place for women who didn't have a space to go and tell stories and share writing and talk about books that were about women and not books written by men that had female characters. And I feel like the more places that we can have that enable women to tell their stories, the better this world will be.
That's right. Yeah, thank you. And I forgot to say that we don't turn anyone away. If you don't have the money, we have a scholarship. It's $175 for 12 weeks. We keep it inexpensive. And, we are there to support you. And we will push you. It's not a love fest. It's serious business, but it is supportive.
We have a question from Jacqueline King.
Mhm.
Jacqueline is a first-year poet.
Yes, thank you. Hello, Jan.
Hi.
My question to you was, first I wanted to thank you for reading for us today. Those were beautiful poems that you shared. And your poems are very daring and raw and sensual. And so I was curious to know what advice you would give to young poets searching to dive into similar themes and tones, but worried about crossing that line of bold eroticism and being crass. So I was just curious to get some advice from you.
Okay. Yeah. Hi. I would stomp all over that line and cross that line and get and write some bold eroticism and some crass stuff and see what happens. I would write things that you think are totally unacceptable and make you nervous, and you think, oh, I should never write that. Maybe I'll write that. I'll never show it to anyone. Write all that stuff. Write the stuff that you think is just horrible and disgusting and you would never tell anyone. You write all that and see what comes out. who knows what's, I mean, if you stop yourself before you even get to start, I mean, you don't even know what's in there, you know. I would just write it. I mean, like I usually tell my students, like, if you think about it, the big picture, you know, this is your life, you know. Nobody has a right to tell you what to write, how to write it, including you. You know, I would just try to get it down and see what happens. Read and read and read and try to write something. And you know, this not to be, you know, this is, you know, not a, this is serious, but, you know, say if this was your last day on planet Earth, and it's not, but say if this was your last day on planet Earth, what would you want to say? What would you want to say before you left? And we don't want you to leave. We don't want anyone to leave, but it's that kind of necessity. Like, what do you want to say? I mean, what do you really want to say? You know, like, keep pushing down and pushing down and pushing down. What do you want to say? And it's nobody's business how you do it or what you say. And no, you know, I mean, I feel like you need to get there because there's all these things stopping us, all this cultural bullshit stopping us, you know, the family, the culture, the, you know, friends, the whatever, you know, even probably some bad teachers along the way, who knows, you know. So I would just cross those lines, obliterate those lines. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that I appreciate, is the way that you cross lines and turn them into no longer boundaries.
Next talk.
If folks have questions, send me, oh yes, here's one from Peg Purcell. Peg? Is Peg here?
Yes.
Hi, Peg.
Hi. Yes. Oh, I thought you were going to read it, DA.
Oh, no. I was going to call on you, but did you want me to read your question?
Yes, please do.
Okay. All right. This question comes from a member of the audience named Peg. It says, thinking about your memoir coming out next year, yes. Do you have different kinds of concerns about that book in the world that you may not have had about your books of poems? That's a good question.
Yeah, it is. Yes, I do. Yes, I do have different concerns, and I'm really nervous about it. And it's, you know, I vacillate between being really nervous and, you know, I feel like it's making me sick sometimes. I feel terrified. I haven't written it before, and you know, I can no longer say, well, that's the speaker, that's not me, that's the speaker of the poem. And it's you know, I feel like my memoir is something I thought I would never be able to get published, and so I really didn't think it would happen. And so now that it's coming out, I don't know a lot of things. Like, I don't know if my birth mother's still alive. I have 10 half brothers and sisters who don't know I exist. I mean, I don't think anyone will see the book unless unless it gets a lot of press or something. So I think I'll be okay, but I don't know. Yeah, I think it's much scarier for me. It's also, I have a number of books of poems, but this is different. It took me, you know, I had a book proposal in the year 2000 that I wrote. So I've been trying to write this, I feel like, all my life, you know. So it feels like there's so much at stake. It's frightening. Yeah.
Suzanne Loomis is in the house and has a question for you.
Okay.
Hey, Suzanne.
Mute my, oh, what, of course, now I have to worry about how my hair looks.
Hi, Suzanne.
Jan,
How you doing?
I am so, oh, wow, you are the poet I am looking for right now.
Oh, here I am.
I'm always looking for examples for my students of poets whose work is infused with electricity and vibrancy and passion and daring, but also have the craft, also have the skill. And it's the marrying of those two things that can be tough. So boy, are my students going to be getting an earload of your work right now. And thank you for the work of your life and your poetry. And my question was this, I'm not one of the people who likes to go around complaining about literary magazines all the time. I mean, editors have their own problems and their own challenges, and sometimes even editors can't find the work they're really hoping to get. But as like you, I'm sometimes disappointed when I look at really the very, very prestigious literary magazines, the one that people aspire, including me, I suppose, to get into, and then thinking, wow, I would expect more. And in fact, I would hope for more work that has some of your qualities, that that vibrancy together with that that remarkable sort of upspring of talent that you have. And I keep being disappointed. I wonder if there are literary magazines that you turn to that you like and would like to recommend to me or others.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that you know these, but I mean, the ones that I really like right now, I mean, there's some great ones. I mean, I love Cherry Tree that James Allen Hall edits. I think that's a beautiful journal. And I really like Copper Nickel a lot.
Oh yes, I just found out about Copper Nickel.
Yeah. And I like you know, Rick Barrett is the poetry editor for New England Review, and I think he's terrific. I love his work, and he's you know, I just really like what he's publishing. I'd say those are my top ones right now, that I think are accessible, you know, have some great editors. You know.
Good recommendations. Thanks, Jan.
Okay. Thank you.
I love Copper Nickel too.
Yeah.
We have one more question. This comes from Tyler Hall. He is in his last semester working on his thesis, getting it pumped out.
First, I just want to say what a remarkable reading that was. Honestly, blew me away.
Thanks.
And I kind of had two questions, really. One is kind of a personal one. I've had a similar background as far as the drugs and everything, and I always face this dilemma when I'm doing a reading, whether I should preface it like you did, or just kind of let it go, because even though it's well-intentioned, when people come up afterwards and ask you if you're all right and everything, I feel like it distracts from the work in a lot of ways, if people are thinking that the whole time. So I'm wondering if prefacing it like that is something you do often, or if it just depends on the room. And then my second question was, I really love your use of character and dialogue, and I was just wondering if that's, sometimes I add those things in after I've written like the main poem. I was wondering if that's something you do just in the fluidity of writing, or if it's something you kind of cherry pick and put back in later on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. Yeah, with the drugs and alcohol, yeah, I definitely wasn't saying that beforehand, but I did this one reading, and probably like 3 or 4 people came up to me, and I just felt bad. I'm like, I don't want people thinking that, worrying about me, you know, and so I thought it was important, trying to, you know, hold myself up as, you know, someone in recovery or something, but and you know, it's something I usually don't share. I think most of my students don't know I'm in recovery, but now they do. But if that could be of help to anyone, that would be great. But that's not, you know, what I'm trying to do with the poem. But I was trying to self-indict with that poem by saying how ridiculously, you know, how once an addict, always an addict was my main thing. And like, you know, I couldn't believe, you know, that denial like never goes away. So I was just surprised, shouldn't be surprised, but I was surprised at myself. But just trying to, you know, I never look at poetry as confession or therapy or anything like that. And I think that if there's something working in the poem that moves it around, great. You know, it has to be the poem, not my life, you know, who cares about my life? But then the other question, now I'm really, I usually start with dialogue. You know, I'm really, really interested in people's voices, and they kind of drive the poem or start the poem usually for me. And I think it's because because of the memoir, I've been more focused on the adoption stuff. And I really think it's because, you know, was walking around for 30 some years, not knowing who I was, not knowing whose voices are whose, not knowing what's, you know, being told lies by everybody. So I'm looking for the true voice, you know, the true voice, you know, the authentic voice really means like everything to me. So I'm trying to get that voice, and also the working class approach to that also means everything to me. Something that seems real, what, you know, whatever that is, you know.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Jan. This was so wonderful. And of course, we all have classes to go to, but I just want to say what a tremendous pleasure this was to have you here. And if you have one piece of advice for people starting out as writers, as poets, what's the thing that you wish you had told your 15-year-old self or your 12-year-old?
I would just say, give yourself a break. You know, don't be so tough on yourself. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You know what? You know, even though it's an AA thing, one day at a time, that shit works. You know, one day at a time. There are no poetry emergencies. Just like keep going. You know. But
Well,
thank you, Doug. You look good. You look good. I like your shirt, and
oh,
I got to
thank
come out and see you in person.
yeah, we have to go out for tea at the Zen
Yeah.
Center. And
Yeah.
I wanted you to tell that amazing story about the cab driver.
I know. I was going to read that poem. Yeah.
Well, we'll just have to have you back.
Okay.
I love you.
I love you.